You guys take it from here.
My name is Tom Topping. I'd like to welcome you to a question and answer period on the downtown improvement plan in Manchester, Connecticut for Main Street. I'm sitting with General Manager Steve Stephanou to my right, the Director of Public Works, Tim Bockus, to my left, and over on the far right is the Director of Planning and Economic Development, Gary Anderson. I'm not a town employee, although I do work for a company, an organization that has a Main Street property, so any opinions I give are my own. I'd like to start by introducing again our town manager, Steve Stephanou.
Thanks, Tom. So I appreciate the opportunity to talk about the why behind the downtown improvements project. It's obviously been a very popular topic on your forums, but also a part of our board of directors meetings. We actually had a board of directors meeting last night. We're recording this on Wednesday, May 8th. So Tuesday, May 7th, town staff gave an update on the project. I'd encourage anyone who's tuning into this to check out Silk City TV to view an in-depth presentation, which includes visuals on the project, which I think will get into more detail than what we're going to talk about here, but very high level. Just wanted to talk about the rationale and sort of the reasons why the town is putting forth this current concept, which, to be clear, is in the planning and engagement stages right now. The sort of highlight should be that this concept builds on years of engagement with the community from various planning activities that we've done, feedback that's been heard from community members, various stakeholders about what they want to see with planning and development in the overall town, and specifically the downtown area. Some of those examples are the Plan of Conservation Development, that is our 10-year master strategy on planning and development. It also complies with a lot of policies that the elected body, the board of directors, have been involved in, including a complete streets policy that was passed in 2017. And finally, the timing right now is because the infrastructure of downtown, and specifically what we're talking about, is the corridor of Main Street from Center Street at the north down to Charter Oak and Highland on the south. It was last updated over 30 years ago. Some folks probably remember that'll be watching this when the town did that work. And it's in need of an upgrade. The pavement needs to be redone. We need to updo the traffic signals, a lot of the planning, the sidewalks, all of that has to be updated. So we're utilizing the fact that we need to do these improvements, along with the fact that the feedback that we've heard from the community about what downtown can be, leveraging the revitalization that has happened over the past several years, to continue making downtown an even more special place that I think we all agree on is one of the gems of Manchester. And then finally, which can't be stressed enough, is the safety component of this plan. So right now, Main Street, as it's configured with 4 lanes, has been deemed by several objective studies one of the most dangerous corridors in the region. It's actually the Capital Region Council of Governments has done a study that actually made or resulted in Main Street being the #1 crash location for non-vehicle crashes. And that's a lot of what's informing some of the safety enhancements that are part of this plan, which includes the road diet going from 4 lanes to 3 lanes, including the roundabouts, and also including the cycle track. So all those are proven measures that are aimed to increase the safety of one of our most popular spots that we're trying to encourage public and private investment in, to make it even better place to live, work, and play than it is right now.
Tim?
Yeah, well said, Steve. Yeah, I think the last point regarding the
the safety is a crucial element of why we're doing something right now. So we've heard from the community that, they want a more vibrant downtown. They want a more active downtown, but they also want a safe downtown where they can come and enjoy, bring families, and quite frankly, get back to the way it used to be years and years and years ago. I mean, that's what downtown was known for back in the day, was coming downtown. We could walk downtown, we can play downtown, we can conduct business downtown. We think that this plan that we're proposing actually gets us back to that vibrancy. As Steve said, these recent studies, and they are recent studies, where there was two in particular. One showed that the quarter in particular ranked, I believe it was number one in the non-motorized vehicle accident and injury category within the region of 36 communities. But not only that one, but the two intersections at the top and bottom of the project at Center Street and also down at Hartford Road and Charter Oak were ranked in the top 3% of over 3,600 intersections within the region as the highest crash rates. That's in the top 3% of over 3,600 intersections in this region. Keeping in mind that those two intersections within the state highway. So for those of you who don't know, Center Street is a state highway, and so is Charter Oak down on the south end. So those intersections are controlled by the state of Connecticut. So anything we do down there, obviously, will have to get reviewed by them, and they'll have to have buy-in on it. But there's also been some misunderstanding within the community on the Main Street section itself. From those within that stretch, that's actually town. So it is, while it is Route 83, it's town owned and maintained. That was done back, I think, in the early 2000s, Gary, I believe, somewhere.
Earlier than that, I think.
Yeah. So that's under the town control. So as far as the safety elements, as Steve mentioned earlier, we're proposing under this plan some proven countermeasures, and not just, by our assertion, but these are proven countermeasures as stated by FHWA, state of Connecticut, and professionals within the industry throughout the state and the nation. Roundabouts, show reduction in accidents of up to 70% for I believe it's more minor accidents. I think it's like 70% reduction in accidents overall. And then more importantly, the injury-related accidents. So accidents that result in injury are reduced by upwards of 80%, if not more. And those are statistics, and you can find them on our project webpage, a little bit more detail. And I talk in general numbers, but the more specific numbers are actually there from the study, so you can find those there. And I do encourage everyone to visit that Your Voice Matters webpage that will detail a lot of this information. But yeah.
Gary?
Well, I guess I would add, yes, safety is one of the super important goals of the project for sure. And we want downtown to be a place where people feel safe. It should be a place where people feel safe. It's the heart of the community. It's the place where the community has gathered over the years to do business, to gather, to, go to the Christmas tree lighting, to do all sorts of great things. And we want that to continue. We've heard that from the community over time, right? That's really what's driving this, is the community has said, hey, downtown is really, really important. If you look at the plan of conservation development, which was mentioned earlier, the Manchester Next Plan, it's a 10-year plan. A good majority of what people talked about was related to downtown. That's what people wanted to talk about when we met with them, when we engaged the community about the future of Manchester. And a lot of what we heard was, yes, we like what's happening. We like the forward movement downtown. We like the new businesses. We like some of the streetscape, the minor streetscape designs that we've done, the lights on Purnell Place and those types of things. We like the businesses that are there. We wish there were more. We want there to be more to do. We want it to be more vibrant. So this part of this plan is to try to deliver that to people, because, you know, as public officials and planners and directors, that's our responsibility. We want to make Manchester the best it can be according to the community, what the community foresees. And this plan really gets at that by trying to make sure downtown is safe for people and it's more attractive to more people. So infrastructure and improvements in infrastructure, especially the things, some of the things we're talking about, like additional public spaces, like accessibility for people that may get here in ways other than in a personal automobile. That's going to drive people to want to be downtown. And the more people that are downtown, the better it is for everybody. The better it feels when you're walking, the better it is for existing businesses. The more new businesses will want to come here, the more the community will feel a sense of pride in it. So, you know, I think we've kind of touched on all of the pieces right now, but I want to emphasize that that, you know, this is a really important place to the town, and we've heard the community say that. That said, I for one did not hear anybody say downtown is perfect the way it is. We should just leave it the way it is forever. That's not what people said. People said, let's keep going. Let's make it even better. And that is something that Manchester has a history of doing. And that's part of this plan.
Well, I happen to think that downtown isn't living up to its full potential. I believe that because I'm the oldest one here, I think. So I remember when I was delivering the current, I would pay my bill up at top by where ketchup and mustard was. And then we could walk down Main Street and there was all sorts of activity to do. It was just mobbed every day. And there was a theater, there was arcade, there was a corner store where we, you know, bought our candy and then snuck that into the movie with us. You could get a hot dog, a hamburger, you could go shopping for back then we called them 45, Steve, just in case you know. But that's how we bought our music, was on vinyl. Is this designed to drive commercial traffic, retail traffic? Because there's a lot of businesses downtown that aren't retail. There's doctors' offices, lawyers' offices. And I suspect that a lot of them own their own parking anyway, so we can start there, right? The the House and Hale parking lot. But is this plan, do you see, all of you see this driving economic growth for the community?
Oh, definitely.
Absolutely.
And how so?
Well, you know, there's a real interest in downtowns in recent decades, right? There's younger people especially are more and more interested in living in interesting places like our downtown. Places where you can walk to the store, where you might be able to walk to school, where you live close to shops and breweries and coffee shops. And so there's a real demand for that. And we're trying to leverage that and make sure that we say, yeah, hey, we have that here. How can we make that better and encourage additional investment? So there are, you know, developers and, you know, other private parties that are looking to be part of that too. One thing that's attractive to developers that want to be part of those communities is infrastructure improvements, you know, modernizing the infrastructure, making it, again, a place where people want to be. The money follows the people, right? And if you have a lot of people that are interested in a place, you're going to get businesses and private parties that are interested in investing.
The other thing that I'll add on that is that really, and Gary touched on this, is that the goal of the plan is really to make downtown more people centric. And it gets back to what you're talking about, remembering sort of being able to stroll down Main Street, where we're not saying that cars don't have a place in downtown. They absolutely do. And we can get more into parking later, but also ensuring that people that want to, you know, walk, want to ride their bike. For me personally, I have a 1-year-old and a 4-year-old. I don't feel that comfortable taking them down Main Street right now, the way it's currently constructed. I'm also a biker. I know Tim Bockus is a biker. I love going on the East Coast Greenway. I would not ride my bike on Main Street. It's not safe to ride my bike on Main Street. I would love to be able to ride from my house in Manchester all the way down the East Coast Greenway, up Main Street to Town Hall. I can't do that right now. I'd love to be able on a Saturday to go to Charter Oak Park, ride my bike to Silk City Coffee or the Firestone and grab a nice coffee. I don't do that right now. But I think with this concept and this plan, it's going to encourage that sort of activity. And then finally, Gary touched on this. I was born and raised in Manchester. I love it here. I moved away for a long period. I lived in New York City. I lived in Boston. People do want, especially younger professionals that I think we want to try and draw here in Manchester to settle down, raise a family. They want to live in a place that is thriving, that is walkable, that has a mixed use of services where you can go get a coffee, you can grab a beer, you can go to Retro Junk, you can go to Philomena's, you can go to an antique store. That's the sort of place that we have a competitive advantage here in Manchester because we have that downtown foundation. We're just trying to even move that along even further with this public investment.
Tim, got anything to add?
Yeah, I thought that was great. And I've heard Gary and Steve several times, over these past several months that they've said, correct me if I get this wrong, but it used to be where people would follow the jobs and the businesses, and now it seems to have flipped, where jobs and businesses are following the people. So if you build a place where people want to be, economic development follows that. Right?
And think of any place that's considered thriving right now. Any place you want to, whether it's in Connecticut, whether it's West Hartford, whether it's across the nation, whether it's Austin, Nashville. Those are places where people want to be because there's a lot to do. They're walkable environments where you can work, you can live, you can play all within the same area. And we have that opportunity to leverage that here in our own little slice of, North Central Connecticut.
We've heard several people mention both through public testimony at board meetings, but in conversations and, when we go on vacation, those are the type of things we look for. We don't look to go on vacation and have to drive my car here. The places that we enjoy the most are the beach communities where you can walk down, get yourself a coffee and a donut, or you can walk to the beach, or you can walk in downtown Nashville and go to a club and then go walk back to your hotel. What we're saying is you don't have to wait for vacation to do that. You can do that. We can have that every day of our lives. We could have that in our own downtown. We don't need to have to go on vacation to get those things.
Just like the Cheneys. That's what the Cheneys said, right?
Right.
Yeah.
We got everything right here.
We got it all right here. We can build it right into our everyday lives here. And I think that's what this plan will help to do.
Well, if I'm not mistaken, one of the things that makes Mary Cheney Library so vibrant is that about a third of the traffic comes from out of town. Is that a pretty close to accurate statement?
I believe it is, yep. Our economic development consultant did a study and looked at Mary Cheney Library in terms of looking at the new library, and that's another exciting project that's happening downtown.
Right,
as well.
right, which is why I'm trying to tie it in.
Yep, okay, you go ahead then. But yes,
No,
that's
I just-
true that a good percentage of users of the library come from out of Manchester because of the services of the library. They enjoy that, obviously. But I would also think that they come because it's downtown and there's other things that they can do.
And we want them to stay, so.
And I'll just to that point, I mean, it's in line. This project is one of many components where I think what the town is trying to do is leverage our best asset, which is our downtown, in my opinion. And I think the passion that you see on all sides of this project emphasizes the fact that everyone loves their downtown. It's a regional draw. And through this project, through the new library, through the improvements we're doing at Charter Oak Park, towards our development at the 942 site, we're going to need to have a new use of Mary Cheney, which I hopefully will be exciting, what we're doing at Nathan Hale. All of that, along with what the business community is doing, the private businesses that are doing so much to attract folks here, is just increasing this this gem of an asset that we have here in Manchester that really is the envy of a lot of our neighbors.
But now continuing on the theme of economic development, there's gonna be a little construction period.
Mhm.
That's gonna affect, and some of these, all these stores, let's face it, just came through COVID.
Yep.
And it's not an easy time, and they feel threatened by the perceived loss of parking in front of their buildings and the switch from angled parking to parallel parking. Can you address that for me, Steve?
Absolutely.
Let me.
All right, I'm sorry,
Just on the construction and the impact of construction. To the businesses in the downtown, so I just want to make one observation and comment on what we're proposing here. I'll start by saying it is construction, and construction's messy, right? It's disruptive. But in this instance, what we're proposing for downtown is really more of a surface type of a project. This is not the type of a project where you're going to have trenches that are, 5 and 10 feet deep, and we don't have to run drainage. That was all done back at the last project. So the subsurface infrastructure is already there. This is a reworking of the surface. As a matter of fact, in conversations I've had with our town engineer, Jeff Lamalva, we envision this project as actually being not much more than a mill and pave of the roadway itself. You may not see much, dirt, other than say trenches for some of the signals, right? So I think in general, it's while it sounds like a big, giant construction project, it's really not in terms of the scope and scale that you would see for such a transformative effort.
So comparisons to what we did on Broad Street wouldn't be accurate
I don't think it would. It wouldn't be anything like that.
because there was a lot of underground infrastructure
Correct.
going in for the parkade.
Right.
If I understand that right.
That's correct.
The whole street, yeah. And,
Okay.
and there was a major culvert repair that was part of that. That's not what we're talking about here. People may actually remember that 30 years ago here, as Tim said.
Yep. I do.
That was,
It was,
I was not around there, but I can imagine
was
that
here
was
the whole
super messy and
time.
disruptive. This is a different level altogether.
Okay.
And certainly should not be that
So
extensive.
the last time they dug up Main Street, they got down to the trolley
The trolley
tracks.
tracks, right?
I didn't even know they were there. So,
On that, though, but I can answer the question also, I think about the understandable concern and apprehension from local businesses, to your point, getting through COVID, which was tremendously challenging. Any disruption is going to be a concern if you're a small business. It's tough enough to, whether it's making payroll or just, staying afloat right now is difficult, inflationary pressures, all that. So, what I would say, the concern for parking and angled parking, part of this, as we've said from the beginning, we're in the engagement phase. We've been listening to stakeholders, first and foremost, those who are located on Main Street, that are going to be the most impacted. So businesses, we've heard loud and clear from folks that have diagonal parking that they don't want to see that adjusted. And the current updated plan preserves diagonal parking for the entire east side of Main Street right now. So we're already listening and incorporating the feedback that we've gotten from businesses. The other thing that I would say is that we do, and studies show this, and one of the main driving forces behind this plan is to get more people downtown and to patronize businesses, to go to Retro Truck, to then stroll and go to Silk City Coffee. Then maybe they go to Philomena's. Then maybe they keep walking down the street and they get a couple, antiques, and they, end up all the way at the Firestone doing clay pottery. And that's a day in Manchester. So I have no doubt that should this plan go through, will there be, construction, like a bit of a headache for a little bit of while? Yes, this is, Tim said, construction. We're going to do our best to make sure that that's mitigated as much as it can, so there's not too much of a disruption. But long term, we see more people in downtown Manchester, which is great for business.
do you have the ability, sitting here right now, to put a time frame on it, an estimated time frame, any of you, on how long it would take from the time the first machine showed up to the time the first car went up?
So real broad strokes, and it's early on
Yeah,
still,
yeah.
and we don't know the full extent of the project, and I say that only to qualify my answer. It's probably something that's in the neighborhood of a season and a half to two seat full construction seasons.
Okay.
Um,
And a construction season typically runs
April
to
through
November, because
right.
that's when the asphalt plants are open.
And you know, if the weather and the winters continue the way they are, you know, there could be some winter work that could, you know, shorten that time. Depending on how the project develops, we could do some phasing of the project that would also extend it. The more precautions you put in place for businesses to ensure that they minimize the impact of a business, could lengthen the project. So there's a lot of trade-offs when you start talking about timelines and how you would approach a project of this scope and scale. But I think it's fair to say that it would probably be in that 1.5 to 2 full construction seasons.
And just on that real quick is that regardless of what the actual concept or plan looks like, we're gonna have to upgrade the infrastructure. So there's gonna be disruption no matter what, no matter, you know, whether or not we change absolutely nothing, we're gonna need to repave the street. We're gonna need to update the sidewalk. So that's baked in regardless of how the plan turns out. Also, should have emphasized this at the start, the ultimate authority on this plan is the board of directors, and they're, you know, we presented last night to them. They haven't made any final approval one way or another of the plan. They've sort of given staff the marching orders to sort of continue moving forward with engagement, seeking external funding, that sort of thing. But none of this is also set in stone, so that should be clear.
I do social media pages as.
No.
Yeah, I do, as a matter of fact. That's how I got here in the first place, I think. So some of these questions are gonna come off of social media pages.
Here we
And I, by the way, in case any of you don't know, I am one of the moderators on the Save Downtown Manchester page. But I very rarely give my opinions, because I'm more interested in providing facts to the community than, because nobody cares. And that's just the way it is.
I don't think that's true, Mr. Todd.
Yeah. Thank you, I appreciate that. So I'm gonna ask, these are questions that I've seen repeatedly.
Yep.
Yeah,
The rotaries, people,
roundabouts.
the round, okay, see, there you go. And I used to work on Hebron Avenue.
Yeah.
And I drive an oversized pickup. So I don't really particularly care for the ones on Hebron Avenue. And if I was driving a fire truck, I would like it even less. So how do you address people's concerns about, you know, similar complaints? How do we cross a rotary? Let's say a 65-year-old man wants to cross from South United Methodist Church to get my medication at CVS. How do I stop traffic at the rotary, and how does my fire truck get there? You know, if you could in
Sure.
general.
I'm gonna let Tim answer that.
All right.
I can just, I'll
Sure.
start quick and then, it's, visuals are best for this, and I would encourage people to look at the presentation from last night and also go to the Your Voice Matters page to see a little more detail. But point of emphasis number one is that the proposed rotaries for this plan.
Roundabout.
Sorry, roundabout. It's this New England thing, I can't get the, but it is a modern roundabout. Modern roundabout,
Right, which I'll talk to about. in a
yes,
second.
this would be much bigger than, at least probably 25% bigger than the roundabouts on Hebron Avenue right now. It's a different road, different pathway. So these would be designed much bigger than who most of Manchester knows driving through Hebron Avenue. You know, I think people share your concerns. These are not the Hebron Avenue rotaries that are proposed. Second of all, they're big enough to accommodate up to a 67-foot tractor trailer.
57 trailer bed.
I think it's 67. No, either way. So 57, but
Big.
a big
Yeah.
tractor trailer. Also accommodating our fire trucks. We've had both of our fire chief, our police chief have viewed the plan. They're comfortable with it. It will easily able to navigate. The way that the roundabout's designed is that It's got a skirt area, I believe it's called, in the middle where there's plenty of room for a large vehicle, especially the emergency response vehicle, to navigate. Another concern that we often hear, and it's probably the same person that made that comment, is how are they going to get down Main Street if the lanes shrink from 4 to 3? And the answer to that is that the way the lanes are set up is there's 2 travel lanes and then there's a middle left turn lane. That's flush. I think people get the wrong impression that potentially that's raised, so you won't be able to drive in the middle. That is flush. And 2 important facts about that. It allows big emergency vehicles to travel down. It also allows, if you need to, if sirens are on, a car can pull over, giving you more room. But even without that, you're able to move down the center lane. Secondly, the flush middle area allows us to hold big events like the Manchester Road Race, and would not disrupt, 10,000 runners going down the middle of a road. So much different than Hebron Avenue, able to accommodate large commercial vehicles and, most importantly, emergency vehicles. We would never design a street concept that would preclude, emergency response vehicles.
Yeah, nor would the state of Connecticut, as I mentioned earlier, both roundabouts are within the state right of way, nor would the state of Connecticut allow us to do that.
Yeah.
Their design team has ultimate say on what those designs end up being. So, as Steve had said, the designs both in Hebron Avenue roundabouts and the ones that we're proposing here have what's called a mountable apron. And there's a great image, and I believe we even linked the video to it on the project webpage, that shows a roundabout that was constructed here in the state of Connecticut, showing a tractor trailer actually navigating through a similar sized roundabout. And you'll see in the image how, as the tractor trailer goes around the full circle, the rear wheels of that trailer bed actually mount up onto this apron area. And that's designed that way. And I think a lot of confusion, especially with respect to the ones on Hebron Avenue, is people will see a larger, just that action happening of a larger vehicle going through those small roundabouts and the rear wheels mounting. Oh, they're jumping up on the curb. It's actually designed that way. It's intended for that purpose. With respect to the emergency vehicles, this is without exaggeration, one of the first things we did was meet with our fire department leadership. And they said, we have some concerns, we want to take a closer look at it. They actually brought in their drivers. They sat with us, they gave us feedback. We actually made modifications to some, especially the one up on Center Street. They had some concerns with the close proximity of the station, Station 2, sorry, right next to Town Hall. So we made some adjustments to the roundabout to be able to accommodate that. And just as you would with a signalized intersection, you're always going to have impediments to emergency vehicles making their way through the intersection, right? So we have what's called preemption, which it sends signals to the traffic signal cabinet to put the leg on green, so it clears traffic out so that the vehicle can then move through at a signalized intersection. Well, the roundabout, you don't have to do that. Remember, traffic is constantly moving to the roundabout. So as an emergency vehicle comes up from behind you, there's room for them to pull over and have space within that roundabout itself, or they can just continue on driving through the roundabout and clear the roundabout intersection itself, just as you would with under a preemption signal situation. So once we made some modifications to some tweaks to the design, emergency folks, in particular the fire department, they said, we're fine with that. We think this will work for us. We like it.
Forgive my pun here, but it's hard not to imagine Main Street the way we know it's going to be. There's going to be a new park where across from CVS.
Mm-hmm.
And we're gonna have skateboarding, parking, there's gonna be parking there, if I'm not mistaken, and a new ball field, is am I correct? Or
Correct.
soccer field.
Soccer field,
Yeah.
artificial turf,
Yep.
we're gonna have lights there, yep.
So I'm gonna go back to the other half of the question I asked, hopefully there'll be overflows, crowds.
Sure.
I wanna cross.
Yep.
From the Chamber of Commerce to that park.
Yep.
Without losing the bet. How do I feel comfortable, and again,
Great question.
okay,
Yeah,
thank you.
good question. Again, it's an easier explanation with a visual. So again, I would encourage everyone to visit the webpage and you can actually see what I'm about to describe. When it comes to pedestrians and crossing, maneuvering through an intersection with a roundabout, what's important to understand is that the point of crossing for pedestrians is in advance of the roundabout itself. So you're crossing on the approach and the trailing legs of the roundabouts. So the interface between a pedestrian and a vehicle driver who's entering the roundabout happens at a single point, right? So you have, as a pedestrian crosses, they only really have to look at traffic in one direction. Just as the driver only have to look at one direction. So you have pedestrians crossing. And so if I'm a vehicle and I'm approaching a roundabout, I first come across the pedestrian crossing. So I interact there once. Once I clear that, I move into the roundabout itself, and then I'm only looking in one direction as I enter the roundabout. So it eliminates the conflict, the multiple conflict effect of, right, say having to worry about traffic and pedestrians all at the same time. Now you're looking at one at a time as you're entering a roundabout. So again, it's much easier with a visual. So I encourage everyone to take a look at this, but what you'll see is the crosswalks are on the legs in advance of the roundabout itself.
It's not in the, I think people think and it intuitively, I could see why maybe they would if you're gonna be kind of playing Frogger
Yeah,
inside
Right.
the rotary or with the roundabout with traffic, but to Tim's point, you're actually prior to that. And then because the roundabout is naturally a traffic calming measure, cars are slowing down. Because what's happening right now, who among us hasn't, is they're coming down South Main Street and they're going past the, you got the church on the left, the CVS on the right, green light, I gotta make it, I gotta get, and they're just accelerating straight through there. What's more dangerous than that right now, especially when you have kids crossing go play soccer right now? The rotary, and the reason why the statistics are so strong for safety measures and reducing by 80% is because you get rid of that. You're not having cars that are racing to speed to get through the middle of an intersection. They're slowing down because they have to start going through a rotary, and the crossing takes place before that.
And I would just add that it may be hard for people to picture now in terms of this slowing vehicular traffic by this amount down to like 20-25 miles an hour. But that is significant, transformational in terms of the feel of downtown and our downtown. Once you get cars going those speeds, it starts to feel a lot safer and almost like a completely different place because you're not getting speeding traffic that is, a danger to pedestrians and others that might need to cross various locations, cross at intersections. And just the speed of that traffic is going to be huge in terms of providing additional safety features. And that starts at the roundabouts. That's why they're part of the plan, that to initially slow that traffic before it even gets downtown so that it's clear that, okay, this is a place where I need to slow down. And that's really what provides a lot of the safety opportunities that you see.
Absolutely, yeah, and speeds is related to reaction time, right? So the faster you're moving, the less time you have to react. Right? So if you're going slower, 20-25 miles per hour, you're more aware, you can see what's going on around you, you can take in more information, you can see pedestrians, you can see other vehicles. And the other thing that was interesting last night at the presentation of the board of directors is there was an organization that came to speak on behalf of the project, and it's called Watch For Me CT. And she had an interesting statistic about the dramatic increase in injury from just a 10-mile/hour change. So from 20 miles per hour to 30 miles per hour, the resulting level of injury is so dramatic that you actually go from, relatively minor injuries, statistically speaking, relatively minor injuries up to, potential fatality just because of a 10-mile/hour increase.
Now, forgive me for bouncing around a little bit.
No,
but
you're great.
It's kind of great that we're having, it's a
Yep.
little more robust than I thought it might be, and I'm really grateful to you all for doing that with us. One of the other things that I see complained about, and you had touched on this, is, now, let me back up just a second. I haven't seen the car show, or, by the way, congratulations, they announced today the car show's back. August 4th, that's
It's great.
really great news.
Yeah, good.
But.
Thank you, Larry Ash, for that.
Okay, good. Thank you to everybody that made that happen. That's a huge thing. I haven't heard the car show or the road race say anything negative the most I've heard is the road race says we have faith and confidence in the people that are putting this together. But seems to be a public perception. Again, I'm going off of Facebook, and we all know how dramatic
yeah.
that can be.
Mhm.
How do you address that?
So I think it's, first of all, it's understandable that kind of just as if we're changing anything with downtown that everyone loves so much, it's going to draw a lot of reactions and some understandable fears about any change because we care so much about downtown. And going along with that, I don't think there's a better event, a better day for Manchester than 10 a.m. on Thanksgiving morning. It's absolutely my favorite day of the year. It has been forever. I've run the road race, I think, 23 times. My father's run it since 1982. There's nothing better than Thanksgiving in Manchester, as Jim Malcolm would say. And to be clear, I don't think any staff member, certainly speaking on my behalf, any board member would do anything to jeopardize the Manchester road race. And we heard those concerns directly from Dr. Carta, who obviously is the head of the road race committee, several of his colleagues who the town works closely with throughout the year to put on the event. And we've been meeting with them since the start of this planning process to hear feedback from them, show them the plan, what are their concerns, how can we address them? And we've talked through all the major points, which is, will the narrowing the road in certain places impact the ability to hold 10,000 runners? And the answer is no, because nowhere is the road going to be less than 40 feet wide. And that was very important to the road race. The plan holds that. If you actually look at the way everything's designed right now with the chutes, it's less than 40 feet where you have the elite runners and then going back to the less elite runners like yours truly and the walkers. So that won't impact that at all. The other big thing that understandably was a concern was the rotary, the turn from Main Street going left up Charter Oak. What would that do? Especially, that's the big turn, the camera for Fox 61. We actually, during this year's race, flew a drone to see the runners flow on that first turn and how this plan would potentially be able to accommodate that. The long story short is that, as with the rotary, the roundabout, being able to accommodate a emergency vehicle with the apron area, you can set up the road structure for the race so that basically you're flat across the roundabout area. So there's plenty of room for all those runners to make that first turn. So we've discussed that in depth with the road race committee. They've seen it. They've formally wrote to us in the town and basically said that, as long as you guys are continuing and keeping these commitments to the width of the road, the rotaries, all the other things that we're doing, I have no doubt that the road race is going to be, as good as it ever has been, if not better. And actually, I think expanding some enhancements for the onlookers, so not only the 10 to 15,000 that are running, but the 30 to 40,000 that are actually watching it. There'll be expanded sidewalk areas. It'll be a little easier to view. We've also talked about, which has been brought up by Director Lentini, the board of directors, as part of the streetscape project, memorializing the start and finish line in the pavement, kind of like what they do on Boylston Street in Boston with the Boston Marathon. I think we could do some really neat, art installations that commemorate what is the best day in Manchester.
And as for the car show, there's no reason why the car show can't continue. There's nothing about this plan that's going to prevent the car show from happening. Especially with the diagonal spaces being added back in on the east side. It's really not going to be that much of a change, and there's going to be space for, they shut the road anyways, so there's going to be plenty of space for cars. That's not going to change at all.
Yeah, I'm going to echo what Steve said earlier too. We see this as an enhancement to these events. This project will only make these events better. Again, not necessarily because of the runners for the road race in particular, but for the spectators. I mean, the pedestrian spaces that we're making improvements upon, they're going to be wider. They're going to be more level, more accessible, and it's just the connectivity aspect of this project as well brings people in much easier to get in, get out, and enjoy our downtown. So I really think this is going to not only just be as good as it is now, it's going to be better than it is right now.
And what kind of impression do people get when they come for the road race? The tens of thousands of people that come to downtown Manchester, that come for the car show. Don't we want to give them the best impression, show our best face? I think we do, and I think people will see that once this work is complete, and once all these other projects that we've talked about are complete. People will have I think, an immensely positive reaction to come to visit downtown and come back.
I appreciate, those are good answers, because those are questions I had myself, because I didn't have answers for them. And again, I'm bouncing around a little bit. I apologize for that. It takes away from the flow. The bike path. I understand what a complete street is. We've been talking about it on my Facebook pages since 2017 when it became part of the town's plan. How does the bike path fit into the downtown improvement plan, and how do you see that as an economic growth? Again, that's a big part of this for, I think, the community is, let's grow the downtown so that the businesses, we get rid of some of those empty storefronts. How does the bike path fit into that?
Sure. Well, I'd say in a couple ways. First, as Steve mentioned previously, right now it's really a tough spot to cycle anywhere on Main Street, right downtown. And as part of the Complete Streets plan, which you mentioned before, the board expressed a desire to accommodate everybody, depending on, no matter what way they're traveling downtown. And honestly, we've heard before that nobody cycles downtown. I don't see any bikes. I see bikes every time I come downtown, unless it's snowing or raining heavily. There's always somebody riding a bike. They're either usually taking their life into their hands on Main Street, maybe, or they're riding on the sidewalk, which is actually illegal in Manchester.
And not what we want.
Right, and not what we want, right?
Create other conflicts.
So we need to make it safer, because we have a responsibility to make it safer for folks. When people do feel safe, they'll want to bike downtown more and perhaps be more willing to use cycling as a way to travel. It's a great way to travel in short distances. It's also been shown that pedestrians and cyclists actually spend more money in downtowns than drive by car. And I would also note that the East Coast Greenway, one of the big pieces here is to connect downtown to the East Coast Greenway. The East Coast Greenway has hundreds and hundreds of people that are passing along it every day. It goes all the way through Manchester. It's another one of our best assets, as Steve mentioned before. We want those people to visit the businesses downtown. we don't want to inhibit them from doing that, no matter what, what way of travel they've arrived. So encouraging those cyclists to take a break and come to restaurants or, go stop at a lodge. I think
Only one beer.
yeah, right. Hopefully, unless they're there for a long time. But I think there's an opportunity there for folks that enjoy that active lifestyle, and want to have opportunities for shopping and going out and things like that. And I think just the way we're set up and the way downtown is, that's an opportunity here, and we want to leverage that.
And keep in mind also that the cycle track is not the type of throughway or trail that most people are thinking about, where it's not so much a recreational way, right? So you get a lot of trails where you get the guys out with the helmets and the 20-30 miles an hour on their bikes and just flying down. This is not what this is designed to accommodate. This is designed to accommodate people looking to come downtown and connect with other trails. It's a different type of recreation. It's not people looking to come out and get their best time for a 20-mile ride, right? So this is people interacting within a semi-urban environment. It's not designed for speed. It's designed to accommodate.
Again, this is from social media, and I think, yeah, there's two that kind of tie in together. A lot of these businesses only have one main entrance, and that's on Main Street. And the deliveries that go in, okay, because that happened to me the other day. I'll be honest with you. And it was.
What happened? You describe it.
It was a big box truck, probably a 17 or a 21 footer, so it was a good size, wasn't a tractor trailer. But I'm not gonna mention the name of the restaurant. But
Good move.
Yeah, he didn't move, and I drive an oversized vehicle. So I also have vision issues that complicate my driving, so it's a little extraordinary. But I had to move over, and I was on the other side of the yellow line. And I don't want to be on the other side of the yellow line.
Thank you for saying that, because that's exactly what we're trying to address. Because when people ask, how is this going to work with deliveries and drop-offs? What I think people fail to realize is what's happening right now, where we don't want to lose Mr. Topping because someone's making a drop-off at one of our wonderful establishments. So Tim can kind of talk about the way in which the design is meant to address that very issue.
Sure. So right now, your experience is typical to what a lot of folks have, not just with respect to encountering a delivery truck, but also folks taking a left turn lane in that left turn in that left lane, right? What results from that is people, as you come up on a delivery truck, or you come up behind someone looking to take a left turn in front of you, you have to weave now. The weave is a lane shift. Now you have to shift to the other lane. That is the side swipe crashes are the number one crashes that we're finding right now in our downtown corridor, is when people have to weave as a result of something happening in front of them in that lane. They now have to shift lanes, and we all know what that's like. You mentioned you have visibility issues. I have neck issues. You got to turn your head. You got to look. You got to signal. And hope no one's coming. And then you get the side swipe accidents that happen. With the new design, we only have one lane. But not only do we have one lane, we also have built-in buffers on either side, both within the space of the outside the lane marking, so between the lane marking and the parking, the street parking, and then also with the center median. So now, instead of having to actually make a lane shift, you can just slide in without having to worry about someone coming up from behind you in another lane, right? So it's a single file traffic pattern. And while we may not be able to eliminate all of the delivery truck issues, we have built in some space, and we're also looking as part of our community engagement process, especially with the businesses. We heard that from the businesses saying, are there ways that you can help us with deliveries? Not, what are you gonna do about deliveries? The question was, can you help us with deliveries? Because this is what we're dealing with right now. Are there ways that you can build solutions into this project? And we're looking at that. Some of the suggestions which we thought were great were creating drop-off spaces, right? So, or delivery spaces, bump out areas, so think in terms of like a bus bump out, but not for a bus. But it could be a multi-purpose use for Lyft rides or Uber rides or drop-offs or deliveries.
Or identifying some of the perpendicular streets and some areas that we can accommodate as
Right.
well, so.
Yeah, the businesses suggested looking at drop-off or delivery areas, creating delivery areas on some of the side streets. Which this project, and we talk a lot about this being a Main Street project. Some of the other feedback we got, and as part of the community engagement was, help us, connect to some of the rear lots. And does it have to remain on Main Street, or can we extend some of the improved lighting, some of the improved sidewalks to the rear lots behind the businesses? Because that is where a lot of our effective parking is. And we're looking at possibly doing that as well. We think we can do that.
And I think this is an example, because I've heard this criticism in public comment, I've seen it on social media, of the town's not listening to anybody. They're just ignoring. And to me, like the example here also of changing the plan on the diagonal parking, that we modified it so it's all diagonal on the east side right now. That's feedback directly from the stakeholders that are most impacted, or coming up with options to help it make it easier to do deliveries. So I can understand why people think that, oh, this is just a plan, the town's just putting it out there, blinders on. No, actually, I mean, we right now are still developing it, and we're incorporating what we're hearing from people.
We won't even have call it a preliminary design. Right now, all we have are our concepts. Our preliminary design won't even be developed until probably the end of the summer, based upon a lot of the feedback that we're getting. That'll be a preliminary design that will once again be put out into the public, given to our board of directors for contemplation, and then additional feedback will probably refine that even more. So we're not even in a preliminary design phase yet.
And then we're starting to wind down a little bit, at least with this stuff from the social media, and then we're gonna get into my questions. The Army Navy Club, that's been a topic of discussion. And specifically the bingo night, which I think is Saturday.
Yep.
And I know that the Save Downtown Manchester group has really focused on that because of the age of some of most of the attendees, let's,
Yep.
call it what it is. How does this plan address those concerns?
So thanks for bringing that up. I'll say that we've talked directly a few weeks ago, went down to one of their monthly membership meetings. Peter Miller was gracious enough to invite us there, and we talked to the membership. So we heard directly. I'll say that a lot of the streetscape concept is separate from, I think, a lot of the Army Navy Club concerns, which is more to do with the Forest Street parking lot area, and the desire on part of the members to preserve that off-street parking. And so, what I'll say is that I think this plan, although we've talked about the safety measures, the traffic calming measures, are intended to make this safer for everybody, including Army Navy patrons, whether it's a Saturday night or a Tuesday night. But, the town is looking to redevelop the 942 and 4th Street lot, but any redevelopment that's done, I'm confident it's going to be preserving public parking. That was part of the initial RFP that we put out, that would preserve at least 60 spots. And I know some members of the club are looking more than that. We're trying to address that in a multitude of ways, looking at potential other areas that we can get off-street parking. And then part of the initial phase of this concept actually does include adding a parking lot right to the south of the Bennett housing complex, which is town-owned, and now it's vacant vacant land. We'd be looking to add about almost 70 parking spots there. Now, I've heard from some members that, it's not easy if you're a 75-year-old Army Navy Club member to, park in a parking lot and then, go to the club. It's not dissimilar to if you're at the end of the current 4th Street lot towards the 942 building, the amount of time that it would take to get from the proposed lot. The other thing is that will free up space that might be occupied right now at the 4th Street lot. So there's just by adding more off-street, you're increasing the supply, which should mitigate some of the pressure right now that is on that current lot on a Saturday night when there's bingo when people are going to Mulberry Street. And then, finally, the parking, we have the option to make as many handicap accessible spots as we want. And we've talked with the club about trying to preserve some spaces on that west side in front of the club to make them handicap accessible. So it's definitely a legitimate concern. We hear it loud and clear. And, I think that just speaking on behalf of the town, I know the board of directors feel this way, to ensure that the Army Navy Club, needs are met as best we can.
All right, and then this, I think this is gonna start the close of the presentation here. But this is my question. I think it's a legitimate question, but it's something I haven't seen really addressed. First of all, I think 15 million for the plan, the way it's described, is really optimistic. So congratulations if you can do it for that. Just my own personal.
Well,
opinion.
everything costs a lot now.
Yep,
So
yep.
for sure.
But let's, it's my understanding that we're getting grants in part at least because of the type of design, the complete street or landscape. So let's say that we change the plan from a complete street to more standard. And just update the do the ground and mill and dig it up. And then update the lights that everybody seems to think we need to do.
Sidewalks, yep.
The sidewalks,
Yep.
right, the basic stuff.
Yep.
It's the way I see it, the way I understand it, is that would be probably part of a public works bond next year.
Well, thank you for asking that. So currently, we think anywhere probably between 15 and $20 million, the entire project. It's tough to estimate this exactly. Construction costs, as everyone knows, are at historic level. I think that's safe to say between 15 and 20 million. At the start of this, it was more like 15, but given inflationary pressures, we have secured a grant from the state of Connecticut for $7.5 million, and it's based on the concept of the complete streets, the roundabouts, the cycle track. And importantly, the reason that we were able to secure that funding, the reason why we think we're going to be competitive with some federal grants we're going for that the board authorizes to pursue. Again, not having a plan finalized, but at least seeking out the grants. The federal government and the state government are funding these proven safety measures that mitigate, traffic accidents and injuries and fatalities. That's the reason that they're funding it. And if we change the plan, we're certainly going to risk the 7.5 that we've already received. We're definitely going to risk the federal funding, because that's going to go towards data-driven, proven plans that are gonna, the grant that we actually just applied for, that we're authorized to apply for last night, is called Safe Streets for All. That's funded by the bipartisan infrastructure law that was passed, 2 years ago now, through the federal DOT. That this sort of concept is exactly what they're looking to fund. If we change it, we're not going to get the funding, which is fine in the stance that, okay, we don't need to design it just because we're seeking a grant. But the trade-off to realize for folks in the community is that if we don't get that money because of wanting to keep things the way that they are, to your point, when we every 2 years come to the board of directors, which ultimately goes to the voters in a referendum of anywhere between 15 and $20 million for roads and sidewalk projects throughout Manchester, we're going to be asking for an additional probably $5 to $10 million just to improve the existing infrastructure of the traffic signals, the street itself, and the sidewalks. And that's going to be a tab on the local taxpayer, where alternatively, because this is the sort of concept that's being supported at the federal and state level, I'm very confident that we could probably fund the entire thing through external funds that are not going to cost Manchester taxpayers anything.
So as far as I'm concerned, we've covered everything that I had for you, gentlemen. Is there anything that I missed that you would like to close with before?
No, I would just say I appreciate you the opportunity. I would also say that for people that are opposed to the plan or have a negative perception, to me, there's no issue in just being opposed to the plan. You don't, for whatever reason, you don't want to see the change. That's understandable. I would just ask that people look at our webpage, look at the actual facts. If you come to the conclusion that you still won't like what the current concept is, that's fine. Absolutely. This is what local government's all about. It's, democracy at its best, people speaking up, voicing their opinion. At the end of the day, what's great about it is everyone's so passionate about it because we love downtown, because we love Manchester. I'd also say, again, please just try and get the most factual information. I'm available. My email is sstefano@manchesterct.gov. I'm happy to talk to any resident who has questions about the plan, that wants to talk to me about the plan, wants to give feedback. The board of directors, you can come to a meeting. We have a lot of information that's available. But I would just encourage people to get as informed as possible and make your own, decision. I think the town, the professional staff has done an excellent job of putting together a design that complies with previous policies, previous levels of engagement, puts us in a position to, again, make downtown Manchester even better than it already is. So thanks for the opportunity to talk about it.
Yeah. Gary, anything?
I'll add just one thing I really would like folks to remember and focus on the fact that this is primarily a safety improvement project. This is what's really driving a lot of what we're doing out here. Now, having said that, it also happens to align with a lot of other factors. Aging infrastructure that's going to need upgrade, opportunities for funding. So taking all this together, it's all aligning and allowing us to be able to present this opportunity for the community. With respect to safety, look, I'm sure everyone that reads the news, they listen to the news, pedestrian and cyclist injuries and fatalities as a result of accidents. It's going in the wrong direction. The number of accidents that we're seeing in this state alone is on the rise. It's only through proven countermeasures like what we're proposing under this project that we can hopefully turn the tide and eliminate a lot of what we're seeing in the state right now. And I think, that alone is what's driving a lot of the funding opportunities that we're seeing out there, which we're hoping to leverage as part of this and save the local taxpayers.
Yeah, the only thing I would add is that, we understand change is hard. This would be a big change, significant change, but it's based on what the community has told us, right? So it's really based on what we've heard over the last 10 or so years. Change is not easy, but Manchester's always been a place that's thinking about what's next. Since the Cheneys were around and developed basically the whole town from the inside out, they were looking to make sure they were ready for what was coming next. And this is a way that we're trying to do that. We're trying to make sure that downtown's ready for the next 50 years. We've done it through, our own expertise, but mostly through listening to the community and trying to give them what they want.
Well, on behalf of the residents of the town of Manchester and everybody watching, I would like to thank the three of you for spending what really turned into quite a little bit of time putting this together, but I think we came up with something very special and very useful. I hope it's the beginning of a series of these events that we can run. If you have any questions on the plan, I would check out the town's Facebook page I'm sure they'll put the link up from time to time. You can search it. That's Town of Manchester Government. You can also call Doreen's Customer Service Department at 860-647-5235 and ask for the link. She'll email it to you or they'll give it to you. And I guess that's it. Thank you for watching, and I hope you learned that you got some of your questions answered, and stay tuned for our next episode and hopefully the next 2 or 3 weeks. Have a great afternoon, great evening.
Thanks,
What do you
Tom.
think?
Nailed it. You guys are great.
I knew we would be.
Yeah, that's great.